Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Combo Couch. This is Pasta Jardula. I got this, fam. I got everything in control. I'm doing it. Look, it says share this stream, fams. I got advertising. I even got, look at this one. Boom. Want to see more fee? Check out the news desk on RT, streaming live on Rumble and Odyssey, fam. Come on now. Some love, no?
The title's wrong.
Okay.
But
Well, I'll let you.
the thumbnail. Yeah. Guys, so we had to discuss this because I think this is very ridiculous what's going on here with people.
Obviously.
Yeah, well, you can say your opinion, but your opinion is your opinion, and so is everybody else's. It's an opinion. People are acting like this is a factual thing. Like they're saying this is all child abuse, and that is a very heavy statement to make. And most people have no idea, have never had an interaction with a person that's actually gone through a transition. And I have. And from childhood, and some kids do know from the moment they're children, they feel like they're not in the right body. Now, whether you think that's child dysmorphia, whether you think that's, there's something wrong with them, whatever the case may be. This happened to somebody I knew and their sibling, and the parents were extreme Christians, like extreme, conservative Christians from the Midwest. They still are. The person was born female, and then they wanted to be. They didn't, from the moment they were little, they dressed like a man, like a little boy. They wanted, and sometimes kids, when you're a kid, you play with cars. When you're, you can play with dolls, whatever. It doesn't mean anything. You just let kids be kids. But there are certain instances when kids just literally feel like they're in the wrong body, whether you think that's biological or not. I personally think there are cases where it is, because scientifically there is a male and a female. Nobody's discussing that there's not two genders. There's obviously male and female. There's two genders. What happens is sometimes there are hormones, and sometimes people are born with both sexes. And then the parents have to decide, hey, do you want this kid to be male or female? This is actually true. I don't know why you're smiling at me. This is actually, you can read all about this.
I'm not smiling at you. I was looking at the chat. Sorry. Just people what they're saying.
And you guys can look it up. It's scientific. You can be born with two of the same, basically you can be born with both sexes. And then the parents have to make a decision, like, what is this kid? We have to choose, blah, blah, blah. Now, most of the time, most people aren't born like this. They have to, sometimes, people just feel a certain way. Now, I do think there's a sort of gender dysmorphia at play. I do think there's a trend that is being pushed a lot in the liberal mainstream about trans, like that it's like cool now to be trans. The same thing with the LGBTQ, like being gay. It's like so acceptable now that, everybody's like, oh, I'm this, I'm that. And I do think it's a trend. But I also think this is an issue about generations, because I have a younger sibling, and also my younger sibling and their friends are extremely, they don't care about this stuff. I mean, to them, they don't care what sex people are. They don't care what people do in terms of that. Like they're very fluid about this, and they're going to continue to be more fluid. So generations that are older are more like, no, this is weird. They're just not as comfortable with it. So, this is that's the situation that we're experiencing right now. And
well, we got Kim with us, so let's bring her in, because she's standing.
Yeah, let's bring her in.
She's waiting. Welcome back to
the show. But that's
not
even what we're discussing. We're going to discuss, what we're going to discuss with Kim is a very specific thing.
Well, no, we have to stay on that, because I want to give my opinion about that too, and I'm sure Kim was listening. But Kim, obviously we're going to go into all your tweets, everything that happened yesterday. We're going to discuss that. But what Fee just opened up with, because very similar to what you were telling me yesterday about, you know, knowing somebody who's went through this, and a lot of people who are making this opinion probably have never talked to anybody who's transitioned. In a lot of cases, they see like these Karens, you know, like the ones, and I'm guilty of this too. Like I would show the woman in Minnesota taking her son for a shot and nobody showed up, and I'm like, you know, that's what we picture somebody to be, you know, what Tyler Fisher says, where we're treating adults like children, but children like adults, you know? You heard what Fee just said to open up the show. Do you want to give your opinion on what was said there?
Yeah, I mean, just from, I have two ways of looking at this: the logical perspective, in my mind, and the, you know, more emotional perspective, I suppose, of knowing somebody who's gone through this, specifically whose child was inflicting a lot of self-harm for years, a lot of self-harm, not just a flippant, you know, they come home and say, hey, I want to be a boy. Something that these parents were going through that was extremely difficult. I mean, difficult's not even the right word. It was life-changing. I mean, one parent had to quit their job, stay at home 100% of the time. Their teenager could not be left alone. Their teenager was extremely suicidal. They, you know, people tend to be more conservative on these issues. Of course, you know, I think every parent, when they first hear that their child wants to be the other gender, I think any parent, no matter how liberal they are, actually, their natural reaction is, oh my gosh, no, you know, you are my child. You were born a boy or you were born a girl. You're beautiful the way you are. We will not change you. I think that is the natural reaction for most parents when it comes to this particular issue. I say this particular issue because I do think there are some parents that are pretty flippant about like getting their kids nose jobs, and they're like, well, it's just what we'll do when you're old enough, you know? So, but I think most parents, especially on this issue, feel like you're beautiful the way you are. I don't want to change your gender. And they're not looking forward to doing that, but they also are afraid, right? I think a lot of parents are operating from fear. And so, you know, the people I know in particular that have been through this absolutely did not want to go down that road and fought it tooth and nail for as long as they possibly could, until it just got to a point where it was really obvious to them, no matter their personal, moral, or ethical feelings on it, that they were seriously at risk of losing their child to suicide. And that is real. Now, I know that a lot of experts will use that as, well, you know, your kid, you know, when we've seen this trend, I think, of kids coming out and saying, I think I'm, you know, I think I'm the other gender or not, or have no gender, whatever they're saying. Then we see kind of this trend, I think, of professionals and excuse me, I need water. This trend of like professionals and experts pushing, you know, and then saying to parents, well, then this is it. Like, this is what it is. And, you know, you're not allowed to fight back on that or push back. You just need to accept it. And let's go through this, you know, gender affirming care, whatever, you know, and they go through this whole thing. And I think that, you know, that is causing, so parents that, you know, there is that trend, and I think people are afraid of that. But on the same token, I think there is actual legitimate issues, and we cannot leave those people high and dry where there's just nothing they can do for their children. And I think that is really where, so from a logical perspective, you know, from an emotional perspective, I've seen it, and I've seen the devastation it's taken on a family and how difficult. And I very much was very much in the camp, and I still, you know, I am in the camp. For me personally, morally, I would not do it. I personally, morally, would hope that you try to find another way, try to get them help in some other way before they want to go to self-mutilation, before they go, not even self-mutilation, but doctor approved or surgeries or anything like that. That's my personal feeling on it. I would do everything possible, but I also sympathize because I've seen people exhaust all avenues for 5 years before finally having to get to that point where they agreed to not surgery, but at least like puberty blockers. going to that level. And I think for a lot of parents, that's even a struggle to even agree to puberty blockers. It's like, you know, that's a giant struggle. So for them to get to that point, I saw the struggle in that. So from an emotional perspective, I see that. Also from just a logical perspective, I just think once you get the state involved and you start banning medical procedures, this is not just parents. People are mischaracterizing my stance on this, and they're making it sound like I just think parents can do whatever they want to kids. I had actually somebody say to me, "So you think it's fine if parents put out cigarette butts on their kids? Like, give me a break." The argument is not that parents can do whatever they want to children, and that the other people are saying you think you can just make child porn or sell them off for sex trafficking. I mean, clearly it's showing that this topic is striking a nerve where people are very emotional about it because they're using these really emotional examples that are not at all what we're talking about. So this is not about parents being able to do whatever they want to their children. This is also not about parents allowing their kids to do whatever their kids want with parental consent. Because there's also limits to that. If your kid wants to smoke and they're 10 years old and you agree to it as a parent, you shouldn't be allowed to agree to smoking. We have every medical professional who says smoking is bad for you. But when you're in a situation where you have not just your child saying, I want this thing, and you saying, I agree to this, and medical professionals all around you, numerous medical professionals, because in order to do this, you have to have, usually 3 or 4 other medical professionals at minimum, and the other parent. You can't just have one parent or guardian agreeing to it. You have to have more than one parent or guardian agreeing. All guardians must agree. Then in that situation, when all of the adults in the room, more than 2, more than 3, more than 4, around 5 adults are in the room, and the 5 adults are saying, we believe this is the best course of action for this minor, who am I to say, no, I know more than you guys when I don't do this daily? I'm not the doctors that are treating gender dysphoria daily. I do believe it is a mental illness. So I don't, to me, it's not my place. And I don't think the government should intervene in that. And I think when the government intervenes in that, we're seeing the flip side of this. And that is, we're seeing in some liberal areas, they're saying to parents, you no longer have the right to be involved in the medical decisions of your children. I also think that's wrong. I think parents should be involved in the process, but it should be parents with their children, their decision together to do whatever it is they want to do or not do. So I don't think, I think the flip side of this, I think when people are arguing saying, absolutely not, it should just be banned. I don't care what the experts are saying. I don't care what medical professionals are saying. I don't care what the parents say. I don't know what the kids say. I'm the boss. I don't even know you, but I'm still going to exert this power over you, even though I've never met you. I don't know your situation. I've never met your child. I haven't seen, all of those things. But suddenly it's the politicians, people wanting to rile up politicians and get them on board to ban certain things. I have a problem with that government intervention, just the same as I have the problem with government intervention coming into families' lives. I don't know you. I've never met you. I don't know anything about you, but I'm going to demand that no matter what, your child is going to be allowed to make their own medical decisions without your consent, without you even being informed. That is what I believe, even though I don't know you or even the history your kid might have, all kinds of problems where they really cannot make their own decisions, and you really need to be the person making decisions for them. And the government comes in and says, nope, I don't agree with that. So to me, it's a consistent, logical argument. But, and I see people on, that were very much against vaccine mandates, or very much against, kids being forced into vaccination to attend schools. Yet when it comes to this, they're like, no, this is different, Kim. This is about sterilization. And so, this is mutilating and sterilizing. But the reasons why they were also against vaccine mandates is because they're worried about sterilization. They're worried about what it could do to reproductive health, for example. So I think that we need to allow, and I'm not even for banning. I've never been for banning vaccines. Only it's got to be informed consent for everything, and that means really informing people. And I do think there's a problem right now in some circles of the medical community that are dealing with trans teens that are not giving full consent. They're not really fully informing to allow people to make informed decisions on this. They're just pushing one way and they're not giving people alternative viewpoints. And I'm a big proponent of hearing about all the data, all the viewpoints, and then making that decision. That to me is just a logic. I feel like I'm being very logically consistent, but I understand people get extra emotional when they hear it's kids we're talking about. But to also be clear, we're not talking about very young children when it comes to this kind of stuff, because young children haven't gone through puberty, and these types of things are only if you're barely, if you're prepubescent to pubescent, you'd have to, in order to start taking puberty blockers and those types of things. So we're not talking about small children.
Yeah, Kim, you had to, like, just because I was voted a little bit more left than you. Now you have to come here with this issue and whatnot. Just kidding aside, though, I mean, Fam opened up the show talking about knowing somebody, and this is more than just a libertarian issue, is it not? This is more than just about state versus parent. Fam, you have said this before, like, people are born sometimes just feeling that way, that they're born inside the wrong body. I mean, I also want to point out that I think this is a rare case that this does happen. This is not like an everyday situation where they're trying to mass transition everybody. But I want to get your point of view, because I'm still having a hard time kind of saying, yeah, on this. I mean, Kim pointed out that it's illegal to give a 10-year-old cigarettes, right? That can be considered child abuse. What doesn't consider this to be child abuse if it's before the child's 18th birthday?
Medical professionals. So that is what makes it different. So giving a kid cigarettes, that you're although you can, by the way, give your kid alcohol. So there are many states not all states, but it's a state by state thing. Some states you are allowed to serve your kids alcohol. But cigarettes, we know from the medical community, there's enough data to show that it is harmful for health. It wasn't always shown to be that way, right? But now we know the data is clear. Cigarettes are harmful for health. So there is no medical professional that would advise smoking cigarettes, nicotine cigarettes, for really anybody. They don't advise it for anybody, let alone children. So in that situation, you would be able to ban it for children because it's not safe for anyone to be doing. So a parent cannot consent to something that is not even arguably, there's nothing to argue about when it comes to cigarettes. You could argue about whether or not a parent should have the right. Well, so that, it does, certainly it gets tricky, because I am more of a libertarian for sure when it comes to the ability for people to run their own lives and to parent their own children. And there's just a lot of parents out there I don't agree with their parenting for a variety of reasons. I don't agree with their parenting. I think they're making big mistakes, or even mentally harming their children or emotionally harming their children. I certainly hold those feelings about a lot of different people that are doing a variety of things to their kids, including on this issue. But but then I say, but who then gets to decide what is moral and what is immoral? Who gets to be the decider on that? And that to me is a scary place to go. If you say, no, my side's right and your side's wrong. Well, like I just pointed out the example, on one side, you've got conservatives saying, I want to ban all transgender treatments. And on the liberal side, you've got some areas saying, we're going to rip parents' rights away from them completely in this. So do you want that? So in my viewpoint, it's not, neither of those things should be the case. Let it be with the medical professionals. There's more adults in the room. I think when it comes to serious decisions, having the criteria of more adults need to be deciding on this than just the parent and the child. That's, I think, a fair point. But I think it comes down to medical procedures and medical professionals making decisions on treatments.
Pam?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything she said. I mean, I look at this, I went to a high school where young girls were given breast implants at 16 years old. I mean, yeah. This is a thing. Like they were encouraged to get surgery. If you live in LA, a lot of people get surgery, a lot of young people. You can look at the Kardashians. You don't have to like it, but with parental consent, it's legal. So when people say that this is mutilation, this is child abuse, on both ends of the spectrum, right? Like you said, on the liberal left, they're like saying, oh, we're going to take away you from your child so your child can just do whatever they want. I think that's wrong. I also think it's wrong to call the parent an abuser when they are consenting after trying really hard to figure out what's going on with their child, for their child to have this procedure. And it's not like they arrive at this very easily. I mean, in the experience, like I was talking about in the beginning, these are conservative parents that had literally, zero anything to do with LGBTQ issues, and both of their kids turned out to be LGBTQ. And that's just the way it happened, and they had to deal with this. And of course, the person wanted to transition during the time they were in high school. And that's something, because sometimes it's better, because then you align your hormones, like, but from that moment on, and then they feel like they're more in tune with who they are. And I can't tell somebody, just the same way that some people get so much surgery done to their face, that there's a issue there, it's a psychological issue wrong with them too. But who are you to tell somebody that they cannot do that? And
Right.
I think the government 100%, like when it comes to these issues, if I'm your body, your choice, I'm going to be consistent on that, obviously within reason. I'm not saying you can go and because it's your kid, you can kill them, you can sexually abuse them. But the problem is, when she was discussing this and trying to put out these opinions, the conservatives got so emotional about this that they were just completely throwing out things that weren't true. When you say something like, no, this is a complete this is not subjective, this is an objective abuse, that's your opinion. You think the parent is abusing their child by allowing them to have the surgery, that's your opinion. Because it's not, I mean, they might love their child and might not want this, but they might just be giving in because they're suicidal. There's so many things going on. And I do agree there's a huge problem with this issue where they're trying to normalize in kids that everybody could be, female, male one day, the next day we're going to change our pronouns. I think that's a whole other issue with this movement, that I think it's a problem. And people in the LGBTQ community itself have a problem with it. Everybody's getting called a TERF and all this stuff. That's separate from a need that some of these kids have, or a desire to feel normal. And I think that you could have that same issue with anybody, for any surgery that you may want. But I think what's not discussed in this conversation is the logical aspect of, the moment we involve the government in these medical decisions, you are contradicting yourself then, because it's an ideological difference you have. When it's, same with abortion, right? We're talking about abortion. I think it's my body, my choice. I don't think the government should be involved to a degree. I don't think, late third trimester abortions should be a thing. I think there should be restrictions on that, just because of the way the procedure is done, and it's very harmful to the child, fetus, whatever, your belief is in that. Because it's such a murky situation, I think there should be limits. But the moment you start banning something, it hasn't worked. Banning alcohol did not work. It actually created more crime. It created a black market for alcohol. Banning abortions does not work. Again, it creates a black market, puts more people in danger. Banning these surgeries, these kids are going to find a way to get them, and it's going to be in an alley somewhere. It's going to be somewhere. It's just not going to be productive. And this is how I feel about drugs. This is how I feel about all things. This is just a consistent ideology that I have when it comes to allowing people to do what they feel with their bodies. Now, you say a 16-year-old doesn't know what they want. Well, I think by 16 years old, you can get a license. You start understanding your place in the world. You obviously don't know everything. And by the way, our brains don't mature until we're 25. So if you really want to go on that route, that a 16-year-old knows nothing, then I guess we can't all do anything until we're 25, because that's technically when your brain is fully matured. And I believe some people don't even get to that point.
Right.
Like, let's be real. So I think, and she's right. There are kids that can drink with parental consent. Kids are having sex in their teens, guys. Like, let's be real here.
Kids
they're
are having
making
babies. I mean,
decisions.
kids are having children underage.
Yeah,
And that to me is
children
the
having
most
children.
life-changing decision that you could possibly make, is a kid
Yeah.
having another kid. There's definitely a lot of decisions kids make. But I do also want to say that I don't think this negates medical malpractice, right? So saying
Right.
like there needs to be this ability that we shouldn't ban, and we should also understand that there are genuinely some rare instances that this type of treatment is life-saving for certain kids. But at the same time, because we are seeing a rise and we are seeing sort of an abuse of this in some ways, I don't think that I don't think that we should turn an eye, or, turn it and say there's no medical malpractice going on. I mean, I think that we could certainly put more parameters down and to prevent medical malpractice and to hold these medical, professionals liable. I'm not against that. I just think that to me, it comes down to it's two issues for me, and like why I engaged myself with Matt Walsh, for example, on this issue is because, for one, I think that it is an overblown. I think that
Yeah.
they're just talking about it ad nauseum like it's this really huge problem that every parent needs to be worried about. To me, it's very akin to after 9/11, when it was like terrorists are everywhere. And the minute you step outside, if you're not diligent looking both ways, you're going to get blown up by a bomber. It's not a real true threat. And they made it sound like it was a real threat for a very long time. We ended up with the Patriot Act. We ended up with all of these controls on our lives that we still live with to this day, like going through TSA.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, and they increased surveillance. They did all of these things as an excuse because they were afraid of terrorists. And we're seeing that same thing now happening. It's like, and we now know that the threat of terrorism here on our own home soil was absolutely minuscule. And it's the same thing, I believe, for this sort of movement that's going on of this anti-groomer movement. They're calling everybody a groomer. They're thinking everybody's a pedophile. And now pedophilia is actually way more rampant than the trans issue. I wish they would actually just focus on that, because that actually is a bigger issue that is more rampant than kids that are coming out and saying, I want to be the opposite gender and now I want to go get on hormone blockers. I understand that it's happening. I understand that there's a massive increase in that, but the increase is massive, but the increase came from very small numbers to begin with. So, most people, when I ask them, do you even know anybody, any of your friends? I mean, are you dealing with this? Is your kid coming out saying they're trans? Are your friends' kids saying they're trans? And usually the answer I get is, no, but my kid has somebody, they know a kid in their grade that is saying that they're a boy when they're really a girl, or vice versa. It's a very, people aren't experiencing this directly in their own life, yet they're acting like this is such a huge problem. It's pervasive. Everybody must be afraid. We have to think about this nonstop, watch documentaries, read books, protect our children at all costs. And it's like, you're still their parent, no? I mean, when they come home to you, you are still their parent. And if they come home to you and they say, I think I'm a boy or I think I'm a girl now, you would still then do your job as the parent and start, and you would be parenting them like you have been this entire time. So I just think it's an overblown threat. And then I think, it's in a distraction for sure to create a culture war.
Well, before we bring up Matt Walsh's tweets and get to what we experienced over there, when there's a lot of stuff to talk about there, let's talk about the abortion thing real quick in relationship to this. Not because it's another issue where Kim is more left than me, but I think that it's another issue of society in which we don't talk about the actual problem, and that's unwanted pregnancies, right? Isn't it with the trans issue, other than the situation that, this is something I would like to bring up, Fiorella, we've talked about this before, where people transition and then they change their mind and they transition back. And that's a common thing that does happen with people who do transition. I don't know how common, but we've seen some studies on it that said that is a common thing. Isn't it a societal problem too as well? The fact that we have all these narcissistic teachers out there, and I don't want to bag on all the teachers, there's a lot of great teachers out there, but some narcissistic teachers that really want to kind of indoctrinate their views on the children, and that can be very confusing to them. And that's why we might have a lot of trans, discussions that maybe wouldn't be there if we had a society that was less confusing to our children.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. To some degree, I agree with you on that. But I also think that rather than, and again, this is kind of part of that movement that's happening right now, this sort of culture battle coming from the right on this particular issue, where they're basically saying they want to ban any and all conversation about it or language about it, right? Like you're not, they want to go and do a lot of censorship and banning. And I would say that, if you want to regulate that, if you want to get control of the culture issue on it, then what you do is you say, if you're an educator or a physician or a mental health expert or somebody, and if a kid comes to you and says, if a minor comes to you and says, I'm trans, let's say, then you, instead of just affirming it right away and saying, oh, okay, well then you are, so we're going to change your pronouns and let's change your name. Have you thought about your new name? Rather than going down that road, they should be obligated to push back on that a little bit and give other perspectives to the child. Give them all of the perspectives, the affirming and those that are, well, this might be a phase, like be able to say all of that. And in fact, almost be obligated to share, okay, this could be, but it also could be this, and it could be that, or it could be this. They should have to share that with these kids rather than just going in one direction either way.
Yeah. It's a very murky situation because as an educator, you don't sign up to really, it's been happening that educators are like raising kids. That's a lot of the times, especially in poverty-stricken communities, that's what ends up happening because the kids spend more time with their teacher than they do with their parents who are always working. And that's a reality, right? And there's a lot of, this is all a culture war thing. And that's what gets me really pissed off. This issue is so just focused on by the right and the liberal left, both. Like there's a push to make these surgeries covered by healthcare. We don't even get regular things covered by healthcare. No, like I'm not gonna join you in that fight. I think it's overblown. At the same time, the right is pushing this to be criminalized, this sort of transitioning. They're pushing it to be a form of child abuse. Mm-hmm. And so you have these two extremes and these two people battling it out. And then, of course, you enter the education space, which, by the way, public education now, if I had a child, I wouldn't even put my kid in public school at this point because we know that the education system is trash, which is why so many people are taking their kids out of public education, and it shouldn't be that way. When a lot of people went to public school, it wasn't bad. It wasn't, you didn't have all these issues. But now the culture war is like ruining a lot of like things because people are so polarized on these issues. So it's becoming really difficult for an educator to navigate through these issues. And I think the only solution is, it's not only fully on them. If a child wants to be called, if they're a male and they want to be called a she, her, or they, them, whatever it is, then yeah, I agree. The educator should be like, okay, well, is this how you really feel? It could be this. And, what is the educator supposed to do at that point? Are they supposed to listen to the child? Are they supposed to not listen to the child? Are they supposed to, go with what the state says? And I think obviously if they're working as a public school teacher, they're going to go with what the state says. But I think banning any sort of conversation about these issues is going to make these issues even more pursuit. Like it's going to make these kids even more interested in these issues. And like I said, as having a younger sibling, I know these kids are very fluid about how they feel about these things. It's generational. They're more open. This generation, Gen Z, they don't care about people who people have sex with, who people love. They don't care if a person wants to be called this or that. They're a lot more okay with that than say millennials and Gen X, and obviously boomers. But I think that's a generational issue. And I also think that we're going to have to figure out ways how to deal with it because I don't think it's changing in terms of that, at least in the United States and in the West. Here, for example, in Moscow, people are more conservative about LGBTQ issues in general. Yes, I see people of the LGBTQ community in the streets, unlike what's said, but it's not like it's highlighted and blown up. And I think that's what's making conservatives uncomfortable and lashing out because there's so much attention paid in the liberal media. There's kind of a push and a propaganda to make this like the next cool thing, having like, I think recently they had like a child, like the youngest transgender child model and like running in a run. It's like a 5-year-old. And I'm like, okay, this is why people think that this is child abuse. This is why people think this is grooming because you have makeup on 5-year-olds and you're sexualizing them. I think that's a huge issue. The pedophilia, the fact that in the United States there still could be child brides in many states in the South. Where is the outrage for that? Like, I just think this issue is so overblown purposely because it's such a divisive wedge issue, just like the gun issue, the abortion issue. People have their set ways about how they feel about this, and it's so difficult to even have a conversation about it.
And they're both sides are doing it. I mean, it's like the left pushing it, throwing it in people's faces, like, this is who we are. We accept everybody, to the point of an extreme where it's like, okay, this is insane. And then the conservatives are taking that and they're seeing it, and the reaction is to freak out. And I understand, to freak out and say, oh my gosh, this is happening everywhere, and they're coming for our children, and now everybody's a groomer and everybody's a pedophile. And then, that has now, I think there's a lot of people in the trans community that I'm seeing that are very disturbed by what the left is doing, because they're like, oh, great, now you're painting us all like we're crazy. And I'm just living my normal life, and I've been living my normal life. And now suddenly everybody thinks I'm a groomer or a pedophile, or that I'm somehow going to come after their kids. And that's not accurate. It's harmful to these groups that are actually, it's harmful to the very groups they say they're helping. And then the conservatives, of course, the reaction, and this is why it's harmful, because the reaction from the conservatives is that they then go after these groups and say, you are indoctrinating our children. You are dangerous, and we need to put limits on you. And they end up not only putting limits on those who are actually doing these types of things, but they're putting limits on everybody, the people that are just living their normal life, not doing anything to anybody, just being themselves. They're putting limits on them as well. But I want to point out also that, these surgeries for kids have been going on for over 40 years. I mean, this is not new. So if people are now getting upset about it, and they're now saying, I don't want that to happen, we need to ban it. But they've been going on for 40 years. So over 40 years. And, these for a variety of reasons. I mean, there were, for example, circumcisions gone wrong. So there are times in the 70s, mid to late 70s, and into the 80s, when they do, and by the way, a non-consensual genital mutilation, in my opinion, and that baby cannot consent to that. This is very different than a teenager saying, I want to get a mastectomy. A little baby cannot consent to having a knife taken to its penis. And there have been mistakes, and penises have been cut off. That's the reality of it, okay? And when that happened, do you know what the doctors did in the late 70s and the early 80s? They contemplated, I mean, not always did they do this, but there are definitely instances. Oprah's done several shows on this, where they would just transition the kid. They would say, well, we can make it girl. Yeah, that's what they would do. They would say, there was a set of twins, actually, and they took one twin boy, got his penis cut off during circumcision, and they went to the parents and said, well, you haven't told anybody, this is before social media, you haven't told anybody the gender of your kids yet. No harm done. We'll turn him into a girl. You just tell everybody you had a boy and a girl. And they did it. They went along with it. And they did this in circumstances when they accidentally cut off the penis during circumcision, and they would transition him. And then the little kid would have to take puberty blockers, and then they put him on hormones. And it was absolutely devastating because they mentally were not trans, right? They were mentally male, being forced to be female, or vice versa. Well, it was always male to female in that situation. And it, that caused a lot of psychological damage. It was horrendous. It was horrific, but it was happening. And not saying that that's what should be happening, but then there are cases where it should happen. And what's happened is, as Fiorella brought up earlier, there are instances where children are born with both organs, and they do not know the gender of the child. And so they say to parents, you have and this is when they would this is why that doctor in particular, why he ended up cutting off, when he accidentally cut off the penis of the twin, changed him into a girl, because he was doing these other surgeries anyway. So when a child would be born with both, and it was unclear what the child was, boy or girl, they would say to the parents, you can either choose, so we can keep the penis or cut the penis. Like, you choose, you want a boy or a girl. Or you can wait, and you can wait to see how the child expresses themselves. And if the child then, we'll see, do they behave like a boy? Do they behave like a girl? And you can make that decision later on. Over time, parents decided to wait and make the decision and let the child and wait and see. I think now maybe they could do, genetic testing, so we're a bit more advanced. But that's what they were doing. And, in those, so it hasn't always been because of these nefarious, like, oh, we're going to just do this because it's just an interesting scientific experiment. They've been doing this for people because they need it. And if they do, and now, these children, intersex children, are still born. And when they're born and they have both genitals, the doctors do test and they do need to perform these surgeries. So, and a lot of times parents do not want those surgeries performed until the child has hit puberty or is even, more further in that. There's a lot of, it's an evolving area of science. And so they're learning more, and they might find that it's better to just leave the child the way the child is until they're older and then do a gender assignment surgery. That is another reason why we have to allow the gender assignment surgery to be legal. And it shouldn't be something that the child then has to tell everybody in the world. They should have medical privacy. They shouldn't be forced to have to say to people in the world, well, it's because I'm intersex. Like, let them just say, I'm trans. Like, let them say whatever they want. It's their medical privacy, and it shouldn't be any of our business.
Yeah, well, I'm going to always vote for keep the penis. Let's
Me too.
Geez, let's read what started all this commotion out. Kim, the troublemaker. So you said it's their body, their choice, correct? Right? And if the parents or anyone are pressuring them, let them live with that and then take it up with them later. It's none of our business how others choose to live their lives. And Matt Walsh, who got all triggered, said your response to adolescent girls having their breasts chopped off is, it's their body, their choice. Are you as insane as this comment makes you appear, or are you just pretending so nobody calls you transphobic?
You've been called that.
Yeah, so I don't care. I mean, I upset everybody on this issue, both sides. So I'm not on one side or the other on this. So I don't really care, the right coming after me now and trying to cancel me, or, they're like, unsubbing and unfollowing. And it's like, I've been here before. I've lost thousands of subs in a day for various different subjects. This is not the first. So it's not, that I'm not fazed by that. But I'm certainly not trying to not be called transphobic. I'm just being, in my mind, logical about the situation that I just don't know you or your kid. And I don't think it's my place to try to ban you from doing whatever it is you think is best for you and your kid, even if I, in that situation, might make a different decision. I just, I understand people then say, well, no, but this is a medical procedure. We have to protect children. Nobody is. And if they are, this is where I'm talking about medical malpractice. If they're being pressured, then that could be a legal case for sure later on. They could say, I was pressured. I didn't really want this. I was brainwashed. They should have the ability to sue their parents and the medical professionals. So there are, I think, things that people can do. It shouldn't just be carte blanche, do whatever you want. I'm not advocating for that. It's a matter, same thing with like speech, right? I say, you can say whatever you want. I don't think you should be banned. There are legal consequences to certain things you say. You should be subject to that. You could get sued. But I'm not comfortable with the government coming in and saying, I know you and your child better than you know you and your child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fam, do you have anything to say before I bring up the next part?
Yeah, I was just quickly going to say, you asked about people, going back, because she mentions it there, and having second thoughts years later. Yeah, that happens. But I think that's it's being extremely highlighted more than the times when people are better off. They feel better. They're living their lives fine. And they don't want to go back to what they were before. And it's being highlighted to prove a point. Oh, see, these people, they want to go back. They made a mistake. Of course that happens. Of course that happens. And that's something those people are going to have to deal with. It's the same way, and obviously to a lesser degree in some instances, where a lot of women who got breast implants found out that some of them are damaging and they removed them.
Right.
Or they realized, like, hey, I got these butt implants now and they're damaging, they're hurting me, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's the same thing where people are like, okay, well, maybe this wasn't a good decision to make. And I think that's going to happen naturally. People are going to say, maybe I don't need to look like a man because I have more masculine energy to really portray that, whatever the case may be. maybe they felt, different then than they do now. That's definitely going to happen, but that doesn't mean that it should be banned, because in so many other cases it is actually a positive outcome for some people who feel
Right.
like they need it. And I don't think it should be criminalized on either end. You shouldn't be criminalized as a parent for allowing it, and you shouldn't be criminalized as a parent if you're more hesitant to it. You there has to be a decision with the child, and the moment you put the government in there, you're just opening up Pandora's box to what else are we going to put the government in there for. You're talking about health. These are the same people that are anti-mandate, that don't want the government interfering in their medical decisions, but are making the exception for this because they're saying it's children, and children have limits. And I understand that children have limits, but we're talking about teenagers too. We're talking about kids that are starting to exert their own autonomy over who they are as an individual. And I think, it's getting to the point where we're going to have to decide that a lot of these kids, I mean, nowadays, they are a certain way. They know more things than we did. They have the internet. This is just the way it is. If we go back 100 years, there were 5-year-olds that were working in factories. I mean, the completely different situations, completely different times. And so we just have to kind of also go with where society is going. And whether conservatives like it or not, there's a lot of younger people, like I said, are more comfortable with having these conversations. And I just don't think banning or criminalizing any of this is or involving the government in this is the solution.
Although
Okay.
I do
I
want to
want to
say
say
though,
something
okay, go
really
ahead.
quick, and I'm going to hand it real to you, and I'll let you piggyback right off this, because while we're talking about the government, what about those people who have the opinion that this is propped up by the government, this type of kind of like thrust of transitioning and puberty blockers and whatnot, that they want a society that will be, less populating, you know what I'm saying, that would be more divisive, more groups and stuff. And I also want to say that just because I don't have children doesn't mean I can't have a conversation about this. And this is the part that really concerns me about the whole transition conversation. I can remember when I was a kid. See, you
Okay.
said people don't develop their brains till they're 25. I don't think my brain didn't develop till I was 31, 32. Like, I was still confused. And I remember as a teenager, I was very confused about not my sexuality, but about everything else. So that's why it just seems like a dangerous, slippery slope to not, make a person wait until they're 18 years old when they're then legally an adult to make this decision. Go ahead, Kim.
I do think that, I think when we're talking about, like, look at the anti-mandate crowd on this, and I know that people are saying there's a lot of hypocrisy here, but I want to point out that it depends on why you were anti-mandate. So I feel like I'm being consistent, but I also think that there are others who are also being consistent, who are against the mandates and who are also against abortion and trans teens transitioning, or even just trans in general. There are people that are just against it in general. And I think those can be both logically consistent arguments depending on why. So for me, I was anti-mandate because my whole feeling is I don't know, I was anti-vaccine mandate because I don't believe in government intervention in our medical decisions. I think that the government should stay out of it. They don't know you, they don't know me, they don't know our history with vaccines or our religious feelings towards the vaccines or just hesitation because of the lack of the data, right? Like, they don't know us individually and our individual concerns, so they should just stay out of it. That was my feeling on the vaccine mandates. I'm just against the government intervention. I am pro-choice. I'm pro-choice because I don't think the government should have any say in a private personal decision that is a family matter. I just don't think they should be involved in that decision making. And I'm also against this. I just don't think they should be involved in the decision making of something that is a family matter, that is between adults, the minor involved, and medical professionals. Same thing with, vaccine. To me, it's all consistent. It's a consistent argument. So now people might not like that, even if they are on board with my reasoning for this, and they might agree with the reasoning, and then they say, no, but this is my line. I don't agree here. I don't really have, and then they say, where's your line, Kim? And I say, well, if medical professionals, if this is something that has been considered a medical treatment that is necessary, that many medical professionals have agreed upon, I mean, who am I to say? There's a lot of things that I think that people do. They poison their bodies in a million different ways using pharmaceutical drugs to treat various different things, and it is what it is. I don't, and there are things I don't agree with, like a lot of the psychosomatic drugs that are being prescribed to kids constantly. Like, oh, you have ADHD, so here's a drug. I don't agree with that, but I also don't think it should be banned, right? That should be just there needs to be maybe some more mechanisms on control, like more information, more informed consent. Yeah. Right. But it shouldn't be banned. However, on the conservative side, I will say that I do think they have a logical, consistent argument if the reason for being against mandates is because they believe the vaccine's harmful. So if they stick with that, and it's not about government intervention, it's not about the government, so they can't really use the my body, my choice phrase. But if they're the ones saying it's harmful, I don't want to take it because it's going to harm me or it could harm me, and then they say I don't want abortion because it's going to harm the fetus, and I don't want this surgery because it's going to harm the person, that's actually logically consistent. So I can at least appreciate that argument. I can at least respect it. I don't agree with it. We come at it from different angles, but I don't automatically say, oh my gosh, you guys are just total hypocrites and crazy. I say, okay, I understand. I just don't agree.
All right, let's get to some of these tweets over here that while we're here today, if you want to read that, would you like me to read that? It says, apparently the Kim Iversen show, Kim Iversen thinks that children can consent to having their body parts chopped off. One wonders what else she thinks children can consent to. Just a repugnant, and this is the part where they start coming unhinged, insane and morally abominable point of view, automatically lose all credibility on all topics forever, which I really strongly disagree with the last part. I don't think
he sounds like a snowflake to me, honestly, and that's why I said, okay, snowflake. I mean, he sounds like a snowflake to me in that, they go around calling everybody else a snowflake for becoming unhinged because somebody said something and they totally misconstrue it, and he did the exact thing.
Yeah. What about this argument, though, that, and I don't want to get into this argument, but this whole thing where a lot of times they're like, oh, I'm not going to abuse my children, you know what I'm saying? I'm not going to put something harmful into their body and whatnot. But yet they allow them. It seems like a double standards. They allow all these, we talked about these drugs like Adderall and everything else to poison their mind. And sometimes you'll see these same mother fathers who will be saying this stuff, just pulling into a Kentucky Fried Chicken where they're going to eat 5 times a week and they're poisoning their body. What about the hypocrisy there when it comes to that situation, as far as okay, you're abusing the child, but yeah, I mean, isn't the kid living in abuse in society today?
Yeah, one thing that I find really confusing about this, they're so focused on this trans issue, which is very, very, very small group of kids, of minors who claim to be trans. And then of that already small group, an even smaller group want to get on puberty blockers, and an even smaller group want to then have actual surgeries. The vast majority do wait until they're over the age of 18. So it's not a real problem. I don't think it's a genuine, real, something that they need to be screaming about all the time. So I find it interesting that they're not screaming about Adderall or these drugs these antidepressants that kids are taking. And why are they, when they say they care about kids, they say that they're, and we do know that there's a link between these drugs and mass shooting, for example. So why don't they want to investigate that? Right, but Matt Walsh doing his documentary on the trans issue. Why doesn't he do a documentary on the harm that these psychosomatic drugs are doing and how they alter the brain of developing brains, and what that then leads to? Why are we not seeing more outrage about that? Because obviously mass shootings hurt kids. And that is and then they say, well, that's just such a minor issue. There's very few mass shootings. They're using, it's the same arguments, right? Because we're saying, well, the trans issue is so small. I mean, there's just the number of kids that are out there getting top surgery. I mean, they can't get bottom surgery, so everybody just needs to stop that. They say, well, but they might be able to soon in the future. Well, we'll deal with that when that day comes. But at this point, they're getting top surgery. Some of them, it's a very small group. And then they say, no, it's way pervasive. But then when you talk about the mass shooting issue, they say, it's a small group. It hardly ever happens. It's nothing to really be afraid of. And it's like, well, why aren't we addressing the root of the issue, that it could be maybe pumping kids full of drugs when they're still having a developing brain, that then causes them to have psychosis of some kind. Why aren't we talking about that? So I do find the hypocrisy there.
There it is. It says it right up there, ladies and gentlemen. Conservative cancel culture.
Well, he's engaging in it. I think he did a hit piece on me today. That's what people are saying.
Is that what's going on? Matt Walsh, is he the one who made the movie What is a Woman? Is that him?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah, the documentary. Do you think so? I'm sorry. Go ahead, fam.
No, I was just gonna ask, go along, like the whole issue with the whole trans issue. What we're discussing is a very small part of it, right? We're talking about potential surgery, potential, top surgery. But the issue as a whole, I think, is why so many people on many sides are having a problem with it, because there's a lot of cancel culture on the trans issue on the left too.
Right.
Where if you don't agree with, somebody changing their pronoun every 5 seconds, and if you don't agree with, focusing on trans people as like the main issue, like, making sure everybody agrees with you that, if somebody calls themselves, if they're male and they transition to female, then you must call them a female, and they're females just like everybody else. There's a sentiment from even sectors of the LGBT community or the gay community where there's this tendency to erase females, right? Tendency to erase like a woman. Oftentimes in liberal jargon, they don't even say a mother anymore. They say like birth mother, or they'll say like, womb carriers, or stupid things like that, in order to like be inclusive of trans people. And I think a lot of women, even lesbians, are feeling extremely just pushed aside for the trans issue. And now there's the argument that, oh yes, we need to get these surgeries covered by healthcare. And so the counter argument is that we're not even getting anything covered by healthcare. So why is this such a focus? Oh, we need to save the trans people in jail who are being targeted.
Right.
But what about the people who are in jail for wrong reasons? So it's becoming very sectionalized and divisive. And I think that is the issue that I think is the reason why so many people on the right are also so focused on it, because there's so much just like ridiculousness on that side. And so then the right comes in and they're like, oh, these trans people, and they focus on the bathroom situation where somebody's going to go in there and they're going to look at your kid, and it's going to be a female that, a male that transitioned into female. And then you get lost in these back and forth, but it's really just it's not an issue that affects the vast majority of people's lives. It really isn't. And it's just being pushed out there to continuously divide us and continuously get us to really fight on these issues that don't affect people economically,
right.
mostly socially. I think if people talked about the issues, like, are you saying these people should be put aside and like maligned all the time? Or are you just saying you don't want to necessarily have to, like literally partake in every single thing to make them the prime focus, right? And I think that's what is not being talked about a lot of the time. Really, what is it that bothers people about how both sides treat this issue? And it just gets lost in the most extremes, which is the surgery, which, like you said, just rarely happens.
It's so rare. I mean, look, I have a lot of kids in my life. And yeah, there's no doubt, and my sister's a teacher, there's no doubt that there is an increase in kids coming out saying I'm trans, or I'm non-binary, or I'm, there's definitely more and more kids saying this. But then when I ask, like, so are any of them taking puberty blockers, or any of them transitioning? And the answer is no. I mean, they say that they're trans, but then when they're asked, when they ask the kid, did you want to get on puberty blockers? How far do you want to take this? They're like, no, I'm fine for now. I just, I want to be recognized as this other gender or non-gendered in general or something. And so, I think that definitely it's scary to have your kid come home and say this to you. But yeah, the issue of them actually then taking it to the level of surgery and getting puberty blockers and stuff is just not as pervasive as people think, even if it is being pushed more than it has been in the past. It's still not as pervasive as people think. And in the end of the day, you are still in control of your child. Your child comes home and says this to you. You get to guide them through that. You're not handing your kid over ideally, I mean, in some liberal areas, they are trying to make it to where you don't have any say, and I'm totally against that. But you should have a say, and you should be the one guiding your child through this process and giving them the help that they need, or understanding that it's a phase. That's you. It's, you're the parent. But to then say to another parent, no, I know what's best for you. That is to me where I say, I understand. I might think what they're doing is horrific. There are people out there who believe raising children in a religion is child abuse, and they want to ban that. I don't agree with that. I think maybe I don't agree with the religion that they're wanting to raise their child in, but it's not my place to then go and say, I don't think you should be allowed to do this.
Here it is. Today proved it. Conservatives are no different than woke liberals. They just choose different topics to be outraged over. And in their minds, just like woke liberals, this is different. This is immoral, and it must be stopped.
I like the voice that you read this in, the tone in which you read this.
You needed that tone.
Yes. I mean, it is true. It's just two sides of the same coin. It's the same brain. And I've been saying this all along with the woke side. I've been always critical of the woke side and saying it's the same brain as the conservatives that want to rule by morals. They believe, no, but this is different. And it's always that. It's always, no, but this is different. Yeah, I understand these other, but this is the thing. And they say, so this must be the thing that we must morally rule over. We must control this. And it's the same thing when it comes to on the left side, on the woke side. They say, no, but this, Kim, it's racism. I get that about the racist. When I say racism is not actually as pervasive of a problem as you think it is, then I get pushback. No, how dare you? You're a terrible human being. You're disgusting. You're despicable. It's the same thing. I mean, I'm getting the same pushback from both sides. It's just a different topic.
Here's your other part. By the way, my stance is clear. I don't think the government should interfere or be involved in the consensual medical decisions of others. I don't know what others are going through, and I don't believe that I nor the government should be telling others what is best for them, still staying consistent with that stance. And you have a lot of other things to say over there that you got into it with Matt Walsh, but it got very interesting yesterday. Go ahead, fam. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I just agree. I was just going to say, I agree with it. I mean, I don't think the government should get involved in these decisions at all, because like I said, you're opening up into further involvement into what's going on between a parent and a child, what's going on between two people in a bedroom, right? This goes all the way down to the Fourth Amendment. And this is exactly it, because they make exceptions based on their ideology. And that's my problem with this whole issue, and with a lot of hot button issues, is that people make exceptions based on their ideology, on what they believe to be morally right. The liberals did it when it came to vaccines. Oh, this is for the greater good, though. Do you not care about the little grandmother that you're going to kill because you refuse to get vaccinated? And then, of course, they're saying, oh, you do not care about the children, like the children that are being abused by their parents because they're allowing this surgery, and like, it's just the moral virtue signaling happens on both sides. And I think a lot of the times we discuss the virtue signaling on the left, and we forget that the right also does the same exact thing depending on their stance. And it goes back to, also, you can even talk about foreign policy. Oh yes, censorship as well. We're going to censor, we don't, the left is like, we're going to censor these Russians and these anti-vaxxers and all of that. And then the right's like, oh, we're going to censor these woke liberals, and we're going to censor from China because China is bad. And so then it just goes down to whatever is the issue they ideologically align with, they will protect. And I think that's wrong. I think we have to approach these issues from a logical perspective. Obviously, depending on where you fall on the spectrum, you're going to have some emotional, empathetic perspective. But when it comes to the logical consistency perspective, like, I think that's how we have to approach these issues, because otherwise you're just going to get lost in your ideology and your moral view of the world. And unfortunately, that just doesn't set us up for some parameters to actually have a society where people are going to have different opinions and different ways of looking at things. And if you're going to criminalize somebody's opinion and somebody's a parent's way of dealing with a situation, it could come back around and they could criminalize you at whatever you think at some point. And I think that's what we need to understand, that we can't allow ourselves to do that.
Another thing I want to point out with this, because a lot of times when they do this, and by the way, it's historically conservatives have actually been the ones that have engaged more in this than the left. I mean, lately the woke left has started doing it, and it's really been, I focused on it a lot and talked about it a lot because as somebody who always came from the left, I was shocked by it. I've just never really seen it come from the left. I've always experienced it as somebody raised in a very conservative state and as a Mormon, I experienced it coming from the right and not from the left. The left was always live and let live and more open. And then suddenly that has really, really changed. And it's like that same mentality of I need to rule and guide you because my morals are better and you don't know any better. That has started to infiltrate on the left more so. And it's been really pervasive over there. But it's still, I believe, stronger ultimately on the right. I just think a lot of people on the right have now kind of abandoned that. And because a lot of that was guided by Christian morals. So since now younger Republicans are no longer as, they're not as religious. And so they're sort of abandoning this morality. They're more libertarian when it comes to social issues. So, I definitely think we're seeing that shift happening, with the left, but it's definitely come from the right quite a bit.
Yeah, I think also a lot of the things is reasons why is because it started to happen to them now, right? Their speech got censored now, and it was like, holy cow! And when and Fam is right, and so are you, Kim. Sometimes when we say, look at the hypocrisy over here, when we would watch the hearings from the masters of the universe coming from Google and Jack Dorsey from Twitter and Zuckerberg, whatnot, when you hear a lot of the conservatives inside the Congress, they would complain that we're just not censoring the right people. They want to make sure nobody can say anything bad against the state of Israel, shut down anything Iran or China has to say. It was just like a whole different situation. And right here with this whole situation, with this particular back and forth with our good friend Matt Walsh, you've kind of proved that it's just like, wow, they have their own little kind of trigger thing. And, they're being hypocritical themselves over here. They constantly say it's about the parent, not the state. Well, what if the parent is agreed? And I understand their argument. Well, they say, well, this could be child abuse, but then you have to ask yourself, what is child abuse? And I think you ladies have clearly stated there are some cases where, maybe it is best for that person to transition. I don't know if I'm still there. I still think I'm still holding with you got to be 18 years old, but I'm definitely open to having a nuanced conversation about it. And that's what this title of this show is today, Transition, a Nuanced Conversation with Kim Iversen. Ladies, here's the question now. What about the whole identification thing, right? Like how somebody identifies. And I have a video here I want to play because I saw this video the other day. It's got a couple million views on it, and I want your opinion on it because you did mention, Kim, that I think some people are trying to make a big deal when a trans person uses the bathroom. And that's something we hear throughout the whole Midwest. This trans male tried to use the female's bathroom when my kid was in the Walmart and I wasn't having it. I called the cops. Take a look at this video real quick, ladies, and tell me what you think. This is the most insane thing I've seen happen in my life, that women are a feeling now, a female molecular geneticist and a woman who refuse to be gaslit by men. Take a look because you guys might find this interesting.
Trans women should be legally treated as women. Tell me why you're strongly disagreeing.
Because I'm a molecular geneticist. Being male or being female is a developmental process. You can't go backwards. Okay. So you can't change your sex. You cannot do that. And the truth is that currently in California prisons and other parts of the country, women are getting impregnated by other women. And there's just no way that this is against the UN. After World War II, there was I don't remember what body came up with this statute, but it was against, I believe it was the Hague. You cannot house female prisoners with male prisoners because they get raped. That's happening today. I go to the women's changing room at my gym, and there's a dude in there. He's putting on makeup and hoop earrings. And this is not something a woman does when she goes to work out. Nor do women beat each other to death, but men do. You know, and it's so sad that women have internalized misogyny to the point where the man's comfort takes precedence over the woman's safety. There's a reason why they don't want to be in men's prisons, because men beat each other to death. Women don't do that.
What, if anything, would cause you to move to the disagree? And is there anything you heard here tonight that would convince you to move one line over? It's okay to say no, I'm just trying to figure this out.
No, I have figured it out.
And you're confident?
I am as confident as I am that this is my hand in front of my face instead of yours. There is absolutely, this is the most insane thing that has ever happened to me in my life that women are feeling now.
Ladies, whoever wants to jump in and tackle that one,
Go ahead, Kim.
please have at it.
Gosh, you guys are really just trying to get everybody to come after me today, right? So now it's going to be the left.
You did that on yourself. You did. And by the way, I think that you proved that you're more left than me on certain issues. So
Yeah, well, so
I'll give you that one.
The left will come after me now, as transphobic, but I mean, look, I think you're male or female. There's definitely some rare instances where a child is born intersex. There's some chromosomal abnormalities, but barring abnormalities, if you're born perfectly healthy, you are male or you are female. And I don't think you can actually transition. I don't believe that you can become the other gender. You can certainly live however you want to live. I'm totally 100% on board with you be you. You live how you want to live. If you want to call yourself, if you want to identify as a woman, call yourself by, change your name, wear whatever clothing you want to wear, like by all means. And I actually don't even have a problem with the bathroom usage. I know people really freak out about that, but I say use whatever bathroom you feel the most comfortable with. And kind of use some discretion on that. If you think you're going to make other people uncomfortable by going in there, then maybe use some discretion, but use the bathroom you feel the most comfortable and you feel the safest in. And that's not, to me, that's not even actually just a trans issue. That's just a person issue. If my, husband, for example, if we were out and there's, some, scary looking people in the men's bathroom and he's like, I need to go, but I don't want to go in there. And he feels safer for whatever reason. I mean, I'm sure he would hate me telling this, using him as the example, like as if he wouldn't go into the men's room when there's tough guys in there. But I'm just saying, whatever, if I'm with a man and the man doesn't feel comfortable going into the men's restroom for whatever reason, and the women's room is reasonably empty, or I can stand there and kind of guard, I don't know. I don't really have those issues as much when it comes to that, but certainly it's a little trickier when we're talking about locker rooms in schools and that sort of thing, and changing rooms in like YMCAs and whatnot. I do think it gets a little bit trickier there, but yeah, I just don't, I agree. I think women should not be a feeling. I am very much on the side of you can't really truly be a woman. You can be a trans woman, and that is different than a woman. There's biological women. There's trans women. That's a different category. They're not the same. I don't think they should be winning Women of the Year awards. I don't think they should be competing against biological females in sports.
Yeah, so the left is going to be pissed off at you, but I got to ask you both, ladies, Fee and Kim. Okay, so here's a situation. We say when this person wants to transition, it's a rare situation. So if it's a rare situation, why are we putting the rest of the people in society in danger, or people who can make those mistakes for the rare cases? Because let me tell you this much: in the rare cases that there are men that identify as a woman just to go into that bathroom to be a creep and look at women. Now, I'm not saying that's the normal thing. That's a rare situation. But once again, why are we protecting the rare over the majority of society?
Why couldn't you just report that person? I mean, a man could walk into the women's room at any time. It's not locked, for the most part, or they could get a code if it is, or get the key. So that can happen no matter what. That person would just be reported. If you felt like someone, look, I've only been like I wouldn't even say attacked, but like accosted or felt up or something. I've had an unwanted experience in a bathroom one time, and it was a woman that did it to me. It wasn't a man.
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you, if somebody's looking at you, making you uncomfortable, if somebody is then doing something like grabbing you and, accosting you in some way, you would then report that, right? You would do something about that. It would be, that person would be a criminal. It wouldn't be, so I don't,
It's a tough question. I don't have an answer myself. So
because
it's,
what would you even
I
do
don't think
about
there
it?
should
Yeah.
be.
you know,
I was just gonna say, I don't think the bathrooms. I think the way people are going about this is literally making gender neutral bathrooms, where people just go to the bathroom and it's a private stall, and you use the bathroom, and that's
And
it.
I don't want
think
that. That's terrible. That's a terrible idea. You know why? Because for one, they would eliminate all of our stalls. Us women need a lot of bathrooms. We need a lot of
well,
stalls.
that's true.
a lot of
Because
toilet paper.
We need a lot, because those lines get really long for us ladies, like those
They do.
bathroom lines. So we can't move to
So-
just suddenly gender neutral bathrooms and it's one stall, one room. And
Well,
they
not one
eliminate
stall, but like
one room,
what blocked, like. But yeah, it's
Well,
like
I don't want to go to the
bathroom
bathroom with
and
men
block
either. So that's a
Well,
bad
I
idea.
will if I have to pee, and I've done this before. And the women's, you know how long the women's line usually is sometimes compared to the men's. I've gone into the men's bathroom. I don't care.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
need to go, and I'm not going to wait an hour in line. So
Right, and
I
it
think
shouldn't
the
be
bathroom
criminal.
issue. Yeah, it shouldn't be criminal. I think the bathroom issue is a gotcha issue. I mean,
Yeah.
I do agree. Like pasta, like it does happen sometimes, and I definitely think it does. But I think those are rare instances, and you're right. We shouldn't be putting a lot of society in that, but it could happen, like she said, with a guy coming in the bathroom and doing the same thing, or a woman making you uncomfortable. It happens all the time, and I don't have to be in a bathroom to be, sexually harassed by somebody. It happens all the time outside of the bathroom, especially in like a bar or wherever you are. So and just related to the video, I do believe there is like a biological sex, like male or female, you are that. I do think some people feel more one or the other. And I do think like some people genuinely feel that way. And I'm not sure at this point if it's something psychological, if it's something genetic, if it's something, and there are, like we talked about before, like instances where people are both. And so it's hard for people to decide. But I mean, when it comes to the sexuality thing, scientifically, right? Everybody, it's like a bell. It's like a bell like this, and everybody, most people are not 100% straight or 100% like gay. Like there's a curve, and that's just scientific. I mean, we tend to, obviously there are more heterosexual people out there, but the whole gay issue has been around since human history. You can go back and look at how the Greeks lived, how the Romans lived. There's been homosexuality and men dressing as women and women dressing as men, literally in ancient literature. You could go and look at it. This is nothing new. The thing is, does that mean that you scientifically change your body to become female? Will you ever be the same as a female that is a born female? No. And I think that's where I think the left takes it to an extreme. It's like, if somebody wants to be called a certain pronoun, I will respect that. I don't care what you want to be called. I have zero problem who you want to have sex with, how you want to dress. I don't care, because that's your life and you should be allowed to live it the way you please. But the moment the thing that's happening is some people in this very small group want everybody else to make them a priority. And it's just this one thing, this one issue. And I see that happening a lot on the left, where it's like certain certain things are prioritized or magnified, and it's creating all these divisions when literally, like, for example, the working people are all suffering right now. And if you want to help working people, you focus on economics, not so much on these social issues that other countries don't have the privilege of focusing on. When we talk about countries in like Latin America, they're not even there yet, because they're focused on economics. They're focused on that. It's not like they hate or they're anti, gay. I mean, we've met gay people, right, in Nicaragua, and they're like, well, don't come here and talk about abortion or talk about these other issues of LGBTQ, because we're trying to get electricity, we're trying to build roads, we're trying to get running water, we're trying to help people. And I think maybe the more we help people, the healthier they'll be, and the more we'll know about these things, and the more we'll be able to get more comfortable. And like I said before, I think younger generations are more comfortable. They don't care what people want to call themselves. And I think, I tend to be more with those generations in those terms. At the same time, I do think you can't deny biology and what that says. And, that's going to get me canceled too, Kim, just by saying, that I think there is a biological male or female. But at the same time, I'm not, that doesn't mean I want people to have equal rights. That doesn't mean I want to vilify people for what one person did. It doesn't mean that I negate to the concerns of having, men in jails, because that is happening too. But that happens. Rape in jail happens all the time, both in male prisons and in female prisons, by females on females too. Mm-hmm. So again, I think this is like another issue that is also being blown out of proportion as well. It's just, yeah.
But I mean, I do think it brings up, when they say, okay, there was this trans woman that got 2 inmates pregnant in one prison, right? And that's like one situation, and it certainly happened. And I do think it should call prisons and the courts, to the carpet on it and be like, hey, maybe we should change some policies here. Like, what policies do we have that make it to where biological men can go and be put into a women's prison? We separate them for a reason. I think that these instances definitely bring up those conversations, and maybe there's something that needs to be done about it, where they make the policy in, or just don't undo other policies, because maybe that one wasn't because they don't have a policy. Maybe they undid a certain policy. So, I mean, I think that these things can always be brought up. And same thing with, like, going back to the original discussion of surgeries and whatnot. We could certainly put controls on it, where we say, if you're going to have this surgery, it needs to be approved by a medical board. You have to have also received counseling from an alternative viewpoint on this, of other options for treatment rather than surgery. I'm not against saying you must have more information before you make a life-altering decision like this.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, no matter what, it's the key is kind of fixing society as well. This is with abortion, right? The issue for me is not so much should we be for it or against it. It's like, why let's address there are so many unwanted pregnancies, lack of education, lack of a working economy. That would solve the half the problem right off the bat if we just concentrated on that. I think we need to concentrate on society and stop confusing our children so much, and then we'll probably have a lot better results as far as what kids want to transition or not. So that's just my personal opinion. Ladies, anything else?
No, I will. What do you got? Go ahead.
I'm just going to say that as much heat as I'm getting from this, from like Matt Walsh and his crowd, for one, I didn't really share a huge audience with Matt Walsh. So him saying like, Kim killed her career in this like one day, it's like, there wasn't a ton of crossover. So I'm not like, and not only that, but I shouldn't be afraid to speak my mind and to say what I think. That I need to be able to do that. So I think when he says nobody should listen to her anymore, essentially saying like she shouldn't be taken as a credible source for anything because I disagree with her on this one opinion, I think that is the problem with society right now when it comes to the media, is that we're not able to disagree on something and move and then say, okay, I definitely don't agree with you on that. Like, that's how I am with Tucker Carlson, right? I watch Tucker and I don't agree with him on a lot of subjects, but I do agree with him on many others. And so I still watch him. And even on the days I don't agree with him, I'm like, oh, come on, give me a break. I don't agree on this. But I do agree with him on many other things. And it doesn't cause me to say, this guy's just an immoral, POS. I got to get rid of him. And he's this abhorrent, terrible human being. And that is
white supremacist.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. He's a racist, white supremacist. He's a Nazi. He must be canceled. He's got to be deplatformed. I don't go down that path, because I do think that you're never going to find somebody you agree with 100%. And if you do, you're certainly going to eventually find something with that person that you don't agree with 100% of the time. I mean, there's going to be something, but I will say that I've had much larger backlash about other subjects. As hot as this subject is, and as infuriating as it is for a lot of people, and people definitely get really upset because they're like, yeah, but this is kids. And then they are mortified by the imagery and or just even thinking about what's happening. And I completely understand. I'm also very mortified by it. But yeah, this isn't as much backlash as I'm getting on, from Matt and on Twitter. I'm trying to there actually I've gotten way more. The one thing that gave me the most amount of backlash ever was I actually gave a compliment to Dianne Feinstein once. And that was it. Everybody was done with me that day. I mean, I lost thousands of subscribers in one fell swoop and I wasn't even complimenting her. I was just saying, well, I mean, she's at least being honest. She's being really rude to the Sunrise kids. And I was like, she's at least being honest with them. And so she's telling them, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do it. And I was like, I would have appreciated it because I was like a Sunrise kid. I introduced anti-deforestation legislation and I went to the same thing. I went to my legislators and I was trying to get them to do what I wanted them to do. And they just patted me on the back. Oh, good for you, kid. You're doing a great job. Go ahead. Yeah, keep it up, And at least Dianne Feinstein was being honest with the kids. And she's like, no, not going to do it. See the problem here? And she treated them like adults. And I appreciated that about it. And I said that I wasn't saying she was right. I was saying I appreciated she at least treated these kids like adults and she wasn't shoving them off and giving them lollipops. And everybody just like, oh man, I got heat for that, for saying that. I mean, people unsubbed in droves that day over that subject. So there's hotter takes I've had.
Yeah. Well, this is an area where it's, I have this. I don't think we've ever done really a show and talked about this. I've kind of been on the sidelines. It's a hard, topic to talk about for some of us.
I mean, it's one of those things I'll probably never talk about again, quite frankly, just because it is too emotional for people. It's not that I'm changing my views or that I'm scared. It's just that people cannot. This is one of those subjects that it's too fresh, too new. Society hasn't debated this out yet. And so what's happened is that they're just, for me to say something and then for somebody to come back at me and say, so you think children should be, parents should be able to put cigarette butts out on kids. That's the level that the emotion has reached a point where they're saying things back that are just insane. They're not at all in the conversation. We're having a completely different conversation. It's kind of like what Lauren Chen did when she chimed in on it. And then she says, so you think, she says, children can't consent to sex cam, and so she goes on that. And I say, well, actually, I was responding legally and factually, saying they can legally, minors in most states, 16 is this age of consent in most states. I didn't realize she was coming from such a place emotionally. She's talking, and then people said, well, no, she's talking children. Well, I'm a child. You're a child. Everybody's a child to somebody, right? So what is the definition of a child, I guess? Because I thought we were talking about children, which to me is 18 and under. I mean, technically, legally, it's 18 and under, or under 18, I mean. So, but, when you're just using the word child, we're all children of somebody. But when we use the term, I think legally, and when we're having these discussions, we mean under 18. But I guess she was taking it in a different direction altogether and was, trying to put the image of children, younger children, into it. And so it just so the emotions that are coming out where you can't even have a civil discussion about it or even a sane discussion that's where you disagree with each other, but you can at least, you're not mischaracterizing what the other person is saying or straw manning what the other person is saying entirely, like what Lauren Chen did when I said, yeah, minors can. And she's like, you just, she basically like, and everybody came at me like, you disgusting pedophile. And I'm like, I just literally answered the question legally. I don't understand why everybody went bonkers.
And they're naive to think that 16-year-olds ain't having sex all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
12 and 13-year-olds nowadays, especially.
Oh my gosh.
What they see on the boob tube. Fam, anything else?
Yeah, no, I mean, the kids, I mean, it's that moral virtue signaling where it happens to me a lot with the left, where they turn around when you say something like, yes, minors can actually consent to having sex, and they take it as you saying, yeah, I'm cool with kids having sex or something. I support minors. That's how people were screenshotting her tweets or like taking them like, oh, Kim has no problem with trafficking children. That same thing happens a lot on the left to me when if I say something that I'm like, oh, I don't like this government to run our healthcare because I don't trust this government, but I believe in everybody having access to healthcare and healthcare for all. And then they take a screenshot out of context and they're like, oh, she doesn't believe you deserve healthcare. So it's that cheap shot where they're trying to twist your words to represent something that you did not say. And I saw that happening throughout that thread. And they're all like, oh, she's getting ratioed. But it's like, yeah, because these people are so emotional about it. Just like people get ratioed on left Twitter when they have a different opinion on the trans issue, the same way on, when conservatives get a hold of somebody that has a different opinion on here, they all come in and they're like, oh, we're going to ratio this person. And that doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, you should be allowed to have your opinion on this that is very nuanced and differs from both the left and what the right think. And I think that's where I'm at as well, because I think there should be, it's so quick on Twitter to easily get emotional and like unravel on people and just like shout and just like, oh, I can't believe it. I'm so disappointed in you. I can't believe Fiorella and Kim like agree. It's like, what are you disappointed on? This is just my opinion. Just okay, whatever. You disagree. And that's that. And I think that is the problem in American society right now, why so many people think we're headed towards civil war, because we can't even have a normal conversation. We couldn't do it with the vaccines, and we can't do it with these hot button issues either, because everybody just starts screaming at each other, getting emotional and calling somebody, oh, you're dumb, you're stupid, you're arguing. And then it's just like, okay, well then we can't even have a conversation. So what's the point? We don't talk about it, I guess.
Yeah, they believe that if you say something should be, it's just like the mandate stuff. Me saying I'm against mandates, and they're like, you're an anti-vaxxer, right? You're against all vaccines. And it's like, I just said I'm against the government. I'm not telling you not to do it. If you want to do it, that's your choice. That's my stance. And but they instead characterize it. And with this, because I'm saying I don't think the government should be intervening in the medical decisions of family members and doctors, I'm now for it. They think I support children being transitioned, that I support these types of things, that I am, and when I said to Lauren Chen, minors can consent to sex, because she said children can't consent to sex. She should have, what she maybe meant was children shouldn't be able to consent to sex, but I was saying, yeah, they can.
Right.
And then people then misconstrue that and say, oh, now Kim's for children having sex with adults. She's pro this. She doesn't have a problem with it. I have a problem with, if I had a child, I would be teaching them I'd probably be like, don't have sex until you're married. Maybe not that extreme. That's what I believed. That's what I believed all through high school. I did not. Yes, I used to, when I was Mormon, I definitely prescribed to that into my adulthood. But so I would definitely be I'm more conservative when it comes to those types of things, for sure. Much more conservative than even some of my family members. I'm more conservative on those issues, and I am more conservative when it does also come to when it comes to even kids and the trans issue that we're discussing. I've never brought up my own moral stance on it and what I would do or what I would advise for children, in my family or in my life. But instead, people just took it and said, no, you're just for it. You support it. You're advocating for it. And it's like, no, I'm just saying I don't think it should be illegal. I don't think you should be deciding for somebody else what they should or should not be doing with their bodies.
Yeah, that's it. Well, Kim Iversen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
No doubt. I mean, you were definitely,
more left than you. I just finished the sentence
on this issue. You're more left than me, but you are all over the place. You are definitely an individually thinking-minded person. You think for yourself. You have your own views. And whether I agree with them, I'm not crazy about the love thrown for Dianne Feinstein.
Oh, come on.
Andrew Yang or Ro Khanna, but I respect.
Oh, the Andrew Yang
opinion. One. Oh, stop.
Oh, you Kim, guys. Here we go.
We could have a whole other stream.
We're going to have another show about that one. Kim Iversen,
on.
Everybody. We love her. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you, Kim, for coming on. And good luck. And you guys know where you can find Kim.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Kim.
Pam.
Pam, I think we should just, since the thumbnail and the title are all.
You had enough for today?
Be done with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's
Now
That
let me
that
ask you, Super Race. It's weird because I kind of get the feeling, that like this is getting like major suppressed. The stream today. Thank you to the 93.
No, it's just people would rather watch drama unfold right now on
That is
another
also
stream
another
than
thing I did think about. I think this
yeah.
is a subject that maybe they don't want to touch and stuff like that.
No,
Rob,
there's another stream going on between two groups, and I think people were like looking at the drama on that. Like,
yeah,
it's a clickbaity bullshit, in my opinion. But
ideology rather
yeah.
than what's going on in society. Jesus Christmas. Like that's like a nerd. Like
Yeah.
that's like watching a Dungeons and Dragons event. Man, you got to be a nerd and stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong. There is probably some good conversation there, but this is what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap. Rob McMurtry, thank you for the super great contribution. It's always appreciated on the couch. And Anna Mayers, oh my God, Anna, where the hell have you been? We miss you, Anna.
Yeah, Anna.
Love you. Holy crap, caught the combo couch live. Woohoo! Love you, fams. We love you too. Fam, anything interesting going on?
Dude, so Twitter is like totally shadow banning me, suppressing me ever since I went after Louise Mensch. They're literally like, you know how like Garland is like, I'm getting all these followers and I'm not seeing. That's exactly what's happening to me. They're taking away people. They're like totally suppressing me. Somebody was it Daryl said that they unfollowed him from a bunch of people, so he had to refollow me. He had to refollow Misty. So just make sure that you guys are following the right people on Twitter, because it is the weirdest thing. I haven't experienced that level of suppression in a very long time. And I think it's the whole, they know now where I'm at. And, the NAFO people too, the little stupid little Shiba Inu dog people too have been coming after a lot of us that are, Russia State, whatever affiliated. I don't have it yet. I don't know if I'm going to get it. Maybe I will. I don't know. But I think I talked to somebody about it. They said they were giving them out at a certain time. Like when they gave them out, it was when RT like went down, right? And so I was talking to Rachel about it, and she was like, "Oh yeah, like they gave them out like that same day to everybody. So maybe they're not giving them out anymore, or maybe they're whatever. I don't know."
Round, probably another round, and then just boom, hit you really hard and kind of put it there. It's interesting where they're going to put it behind this name right here. I expect you for sure to get it. Like your Twitter account will, I would bet money within the next 3 months that you'll get it. I hope you don't, but I mean, I bet you will. But will they put it behind this name under this Twitter? You know what I'm saying? That's the question.
They have no reason to do that.
You know what? They don't, but they can say that you're part of the RT, and then therefore RT, you're half the combo couch, and therefore you're, you know what I'm saying? Who knows? Maybe
the combo couch is half Russian.
Yes, 61% Southern Italian and half Russian, all in one space, fam. All in one spot. Yeah.
So, fam, I guess I did want to do a stream tomorrow, maybe, because I am not working this week. So maybe just a few rant.
I gotta see what's going on. I have
just see what your schedule is like. But if not, we'll come back.
We do have to send some love to Gorbachev. He passed away. I think that I wanted to kind of show the example of how the mainstream media.
You want to send love to Gorbachev?
Well, to his family, you know what I'm saying, whatnot. I understand he wasn't the most president, and, but
well, the commies were like,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He ruined a lot of the idea of what it could be. He literally sank the country. There's not a lot of love for him in the communist USSR type of Russia. There is some in the historic remembrance of him in Moscow, for like just who he was and stuff, the part of history he represented. RT did a whole interview. You guys could watch it. I believe it was Don who did it, Don Quarter. And it's like a 7-minute interview. It's on RT's Twitter. You guys can watch it. But yeah, he did represent some things. But on the US side, they literally are like giving him a lot of fawning, a lot of attention. a lot of positive, just remembrance, whitewashing it for how a lot of Russians feel about him. So it's very interesting to see the different coverage, even within Russia, from the different sectors of people and how they feel versus how the more conservative, more capitalist Russia versus a communist type of Russia versus the Western, all different. Very, very different.
Yeah. I saw somebody said the gravedigger has passed away, so now we must repair everything that he did. You know, I mean, there's some people who I really respect who have a lot of knowledge, made opinions about this, but at the end of the day, too, as well, I just think the West should stay away from Russian affairs and making opinions about it and stuff. You don't know how Putin felt about his family or his history, whatnot. Maybe he has been vocal about it, whatnot. But the way they were trying to spin it, like, oh, Gorbachev was great. And because if we never just paid attention to Gorbachev when he peacefully helped Ronald Reagan end the Cold War, we wouldn't have a Putin today. Stupid shit, Marianne Williams. You know what I mean? Like, just come on. Like, please. Fam, that's it for today.
Do you want to show that, or we
Yeah.
can just leave it for Friday? Okay.
We'll leave it for Friday. We'll go over Friday. There's a bunch of other ones there, but that's it for today, fam. Maybe we'll see you tomorrow for a fee rant. She won't be on the desk tonight, will you, fam? You have a couple days off, so you won't be on there. So check out AM Wake Up guys. And that's it for today. We want to thank you all for subscribing. Thank you to our Patreons. It's that time of the month, and we do appreciate it. Anything you can do for us, help us out. We do have a give, send, and go, guys. You can just go to that and help it out. We're going to be firing everything up. I'm getting on the horn as soon as we get off here, trying to find our way to get to Brazil, because interesting things are happening over there, fam. Anything else?
Yeah. No, that's it, guys. Thanks so much for watching.
Let's wrap it up, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.